If you've ever been humiliated in a meeting. If you've ever watched someone turn your work into a joke in front of your entire company. Then you already know the moment your career changes. Because sometimes, the quietest employee in the room is the one holding the most dangerous receipts. Before we go any further, if you enjoy intelligent workplace stories like this, make sure you subscribe to Revenge Cast. And if this story pulls you in, take a second to like the video. It helps more than you think. Also, I always love seeing where everyone is listening from. So comment below. Where are you watching from? And what time is it in your city right now? Now, let me tell you about the day my job title became a punchline. And how that joke ended up triggering a company-wide investigation. I knew something was wrong the moment Brendan laughed. He was halfway through his quarterly operations update, standing on a small stage in the break room like he was delivering a TED Talk instead of cutting costs that would affect real people. Sleeves rolled up. Wireless mic clipped neatly to his collar. A printed chart in his hand. My chart. I recognized the formatting immediately. I built that dataset. I wrote the formulas he was now using to justify his efficiency improvements. And we found areas, Brendan said, smiling confidently, where optimization wasn't just possible, it was overdue. A few polite chuckles rippled through the room. Mostly newer employees. The ones who still believed office culture meant beanbag chairs and performance reviews instead of budget reductions. Then he clicked to the next slide. One bullet point. Back-end contract custodianship, $4,200 per month. He tapped the screen. I mean, isn't that enough? And then he looked directly at me. That was the moment everything went cold. Not shaky. Not emotional. Just still. My hands didn't move. My stomach didn't drop. I didn't blink. I stood up. Slowly. Calmly. I wouldn't know, sir, I said, loud enough for the back of the room to hear. What money? The silence hit instantly. You could feel it move across the room. Brendan froze. He wasn't expecting me to speak. He definitely wasn't expecting what came next. I walked to the front. No theatrics. No anger. Just a small black flash drive, placed gently on the counter beside the coffee machine. Payment logs, I said. 31 months of retention stipends I never received. All approved. All routed. Never deposited. Somewhere near the fridge, someone whispered. Oh my God. Here's the thing about doing your job perfectly. You don't get recognition. You get invisible. At Halden Tech, I managed back-end vendor renewals, compliance timelines, licensing triggers, SLA penalties, and contract risk controls. I was the reason our cloud provider didn't overbill us by $180,000 last quarter. I was the reason 3 vendors stayed compliant through 2 tax code changes. I was the reason legal never had emergencies. But when Brendan arrived, none of that mattered. He wanted dashboards. Speed. Headcount reductions. He looked at me and saw overhead. He never asked what my team actually did. Just wrapped us into a line item. 6 years. No mistakes. No spotlight. And suddenly, I was expensive. What Brendan didn't know was simple. He had never actually read my contract. Back in 2021, after a security breach shook client confidence, I received an external offer from a cybersecurity firm. Better salary. Remote work. Less burnout. Halden didn't want to lose me. So they matched the offer, but structured it differently. A retention clause. Clause 8.4b. $4 $200 per month. Separate from salary. Signed by the CEO. Approved by legal. Logged by finance. A long-term loyalty incentive. There was only one problem. The money never arrived. At first, I assumed it was delayed. Then finance restructured. Then leadership changed. Then work piled up. Eventually, I stopped checking. Until Brendan stood on that stage and laughed about a payment I had never seen. The next morning, HR called. Then legal. Then payroll. I gave them one document. And one sentence. 31 months accrued. That's when the real silence began. Because if finance records showed the money leaving, and my bank records showed nothing arriving, then the question wasn't whether I'd been paid. The question was, where did it go? Brendan had a habit of asking loud questions. How much are we paying for this? Why does this role exist? Who approved this spend? He asked them in meetings. In hallways. At lunch. Not because he wanted answers. Because he wanted an audience. 2 weeks into his role, finance was pulling 3 years of internal spending. That's when a young analyst stopped me in the hallway. Hey, just a heads up, she said carefully. Your cost profile is flagged in the ops reduction review. Something about being a recurring expense for contract cleanup. A recurring expense. A drain. That's when I opened my personal copy of the 2021 agreement. And read clause 8.4b again. This time, slowly. Because there was one line I hadn't paid attention to before. If a retention payment is delayed or misallocated, interest applies. And after extended delay, contractual breach. And that's when the situation stopped being an accounting error and started becoming a liability. By the time legal reviewed the documentation, their tone had changed. The questions came fast. Are you certain no alternative compensation was issued? Any stock equivalents? Any amended agreement? No. I provided bank records. They went quiet for 5 minutes. Then someone asked. Finance records show the funds were disbursed monthly. If you didn't receive them, the payments were redirected. That's when departments started blaming each other. Payroll blamed finance. Finance blamed operations. Operations stopped responding. Brendan suddenly had a doctor's appointment. Internal audit started small. 2 people. Then 3. Then IT joined. Then compliance. Because the money wasn't missing. It had been rerouted. System logs showed the monthly $4,200 wasn't sent to payroll. Instead, it went into an internal ledger. Ops retainer, Brendan oversight. An obsolete discretionary account. Technically inactive. But still operational in the system. And every transfer had his digital approval. Month after month. 31 times. The memo line? Efficiency pivots. What that actually meant was he was reallocating my retention to make his department look more cost-efficient. Savings that didn't exist. Performance improvements built on redirected compensation. No one said the word out loud. But it was sitting in every room. Fraud.by 11:42 a.m. the next morning, HR issued a statement. Brendan Leach was placed on administrative leave. No announcement. No farewell. His office was sealed. Then legal contacted me directly. There was a clause most people hadn't noticed. Once a discrepancy is acknowledged, the company has 14 business days to resolve it. Or the breach escalates. Day 2, General Counsel emailed me. Please advise your expectations. My response. $186,000 owed with interest. Written correction of misallocation. Full audit report. Legal documentation of breach resolution. In writing. No off-record conversations. By day 5, I retained an employment attorney. By day 6, something unexpected happened. 3 senior engineers contacted me. Each had a retention agreement. Each routed through the same ops ledger. None had been paid. Same structure. Same missing funds. By day 7, we filed jointly. That's when the tone inside Halden changed. Outside counsel was brought in. Press releases were quietly edited. Upcoming investor communications were delayed. Because now the liability wasn't one employee. It was systemic. Day 10. Emergency board meeting. Camera on. NDA required. Subject line. Liability event in play. I wasn't in the room. But I know how those meetings work. No one talks until the number is said. And by then, the combined claims, with penalties and interest, were approaching $240,000. Then audit delivered the second report. The discretionary ledger Brendan used had been decommissioned 2 years earlier. Which meant every transfer required manual override. 31 manual approvals. No automation. No accident. Just decisions. 14 days after acknowledgement, Halden delivered a resolution package. Full payment. Interest included. Formal breach acknowledgement. Third-party audit confirmation. And a revised employment classification protecting against retaliation. 3 weeks later, Brendan resigned. Quietly. His name removed from company materials. 2 additional operations managers were reassigned. The CFO took early retirement. The discretionary ledger system was permanently shut down. And the board created a new internal policy. No operational reallocation without dual legal authorization. A month later, the HR director stopped by my desk. Not with sympathy. Not with apology. Just a quiet nod. Recognition. Because for 6 years, I'd been invisible. And then one day, I asked a simple question. What money? Here's the truth about corporate power. It doesn't belong to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to the person who keeps the records. Who reads the clauses. Who understands the system. And who stays calm when someone else turns their work into a joke. Because sometimes, the biggest mistake a leader can make is laughing at the person who holds the receipts. If you enjoy intelligent workplace stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Cast. And before you go, comment below. Where are you watching from? And what time is it in your city right now? Because somewhere, in an office just like yours, someone is about to learn the same lesson Brendan did. Never mock the quiet one. They were usually the one who knows exactly where the money went.